increased sharing of information and all that. And I see a lot of enthusiasm, across the two countries to be able to bridge those gaps. The second point I want to make is on education and skills. I think there is a growing understanding that we at the semiconductor industry are the need for the industry and what we can produce in terms of the number of engineers and qualified individuals. I think that gap keeps on increasing every year. So it's critical for us to be able to share our experiences with our Indian colleagues in terms of education modules, both in classroom as well as upskilling people who are already in the industry. So I think there are lots of opportunities there for us to kind of collaborate as well. Actually, many of these large public universities in the US are global universities. For example, Georgia Tech has campuses in France, we have campuses in China. So we can use some of those learnings that we have had in the past on how to kind of provide education and educational modules across the globe. So as we're looking at supply chain of talent, and as I put it, I think there are definitely opportunities for us to have a very strong presence in India. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. So now that the stage is set, or should I say the August stage is set in July 2023, we gather here today to discuss international collaboration in trusted and resilient semiconductor supply chains. I suppose I can split those supply chains into four categories. One is the wafer and chip supply chains, and one is the semiconductor tool supply chains, and then the semiconductor raw material supply chains, and lastly, the talent pool supply chains. In that context, recently, the United States and India got into a partnership called ISET, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, which has semiconductors as a strong component. Mike, would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Last, April 2022, when the Prime Minister and the President met in Kyoto on the side of the Quad conference there, they said that across our governments, civil society, academics, and businesses, we need to focus on critical and emerging technologies. Semiconductors is one. Also in space, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. And through multiple rounds at the highest levels of both of our governments, between the national security advisors of both countries, Doval and Sullivan, and then with breakout sessions among our interagency on the executive branch of both countries, we've held follow-up meetings. It's been one of the most exciting elements of my career to watch the energy behind this critical and emerging technologies initiative. Right now, what we've got is a commitment on both sides to focus on the technologies that connect our people, that protect our people, and then ways to detect vulnerabilities and risks. There's a fancy term that was announced earlier this spring that we're trying to build innovation bridges between India and the United States. What does this metaphorical bridge actually mean? Specifically, it means that the governments are going to create the enabling conditions for the semiconductor industry, as a good example, to thrive by convening people, bringing them together in expos, by specifically recruiting small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, all of that ecosystem that help a major industry like semiconductors thrive, by inviting venture capital and finance into the table so that there's finance to enable these businesses, and by convening the partners to make sure that the human resources and skilling are done well. Everything from Georgia Tech to Purdue that I know that's here, they're doing some great work, and we heard that even just yesterday when we hosted a skilling roundtable with the Indian government, with local businesses, with American companies, and with US and Indian universities. So the next thing that's going to come is hackathons. Now hackathons happen all the time. What's going to be special in the Innovation Bridge through ISET is a hackathon specifically targeted at major challenges that governments in like-minded countries like India, the US, and our Quad partners recognize face us in the 21st century and that are going to need whole of society answers. We're planning on the next hackathon in the coming months as a way to invite Indian students, researchers, government agencies to work with our counterparts to say, how are we going to solve some of those challenges? And then put the best ideas together with finance and research institutions to bring them to fruition.
Thank you. So, as Mike shared, we're working on multiple technologies, space being one of them. And I bring up space in specific because we in India have matured semiconductors for space with semiconductor complex in Mohali. And there are only a very few, I'd say a handful of fabs in the world which can boast that their chips are today sitting on Mars and Moon. And India is one of those few countries which is proud to say our chips are sitting on Mars and Moon. Thank you, Semiconductor Complex Mohali. And some of you, as the Honorable Prime Minister says, the naysayers, that 180 nanometers is an old technology. Let me remind you, you want a conservative, proven technology when you send a chip to space. You don't want to send a chip across to Mars and then realize you left a bug. And then you say, oh sorry, can I order tomato, Zomato or Swiggy to send a part to Mars and change that? So we are looking forward to further collaborations. Thank you, Mike. And Kyoto-san, we understand in the very recent past, last week or two, India and Japan also got into an MOC in cooperation. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, at my first remark, I already touched upon a bit, but this creates a government-to-government policy dialogue platform, and in that we could discuss whatever to tighten our cooperation. And what we put in already in MOC, one is the human resource, the talent and the workforce development. And I've already said that the Japanese industries are very much interested in Indian talent, which is already very active in design field. But maybe we are trying to catch up to the very high cutting edge skill on semiconductor, and we are trying to have the R&D center as well as the manufacturing entity in Japan, and maybe in that endeavor we would like to collaborate with Indian people. And at the same time, I understand that not only design but the manufacture phase workforce, the many engineers are needed, and we know that there are many high-skilled IT engineers are in India, and in the manufacturing part, we'd like to collaborate to raise the engineer to that, specialized to that phase. And this is one. And another one is, of course, the contribution to the Indian manufacturing ecosystem. And I understand in Japanese industry there are some very strong area that exists, like the very specialty chemicals or gases, and in that, those companies who are producing that kind of equipment and materials, which I think we have already supplied in India, but who would like to invest in India more. And of course, this is not decided yet, but the discussion will be starting, and I would like to. I would like to see that this MOC, the conclusion of MOC itself, it limited us to the industries of both countries to do more business together.
Absolutely. I think we look forward to that contribution. You mentioned two specific supply chains. One is the talent supply chain, and one is the tool, technology, and raw material supply chain. So, three parts of it. And I think we are also catching up to the newer technologies. And you have a wide experience in gender equality, and now maybe you can help us do technology equality as well. And you mentioned about talent. Would the language differences need a little more mitigation? Would Indians need to learn a lot more Japanese and maybe the other way around learn some Indian language?
I think, of course, many people speak, Japanese people speak English nowadays, especially in the semiconductor area, but I already know that you speak Japanese with perfect,
Arigato.
perfect pronunciation. But it is true that if the Indian people can speak Japanese language, it helps a lot. So between India and Japan, one of the very important area of cooperation is Japanese language education in India. That we also have the MOC on that. We have revised that this year, and well, nowadays, Japanese language learning population in India is not much yet, but this is very important and for promoting the cooperation in semiconductor sector too. So I recommend the Indian people to touch upon to start in Japanese language, and we would like to help the Japanese language education in India.
Thank you. Also, on the other side, on the raw material gases side, I have personally been very passionate about a specific gas without which we cannot make semiconductors, and that is neon. In the recent past, the price of neon shot up 9 times, 900% in the international market for semiconductor neon. And neon is harvested from air. It's 0.0018% in the air. And it is usually harvested in air separation units, which are usually used in steel production. India is the world's second largest steel producer, and thus, by default, we are also the second largest neon producer in the world. And the world's largest air separation unit is in the home state of Gujarat, in Jamnagar. So we have enough neon to supply to the whole world and be the neon capital of the world. All we need is Kyrgyzstan and the Japanese industry to do the last mile processing of purifying the neon to semiconductor grade. And we would be part of the international supply chain of neon and other gases. May I put that as a request for the governments to look at in a more serious way to invite companies around neon and other critical semiconductor technology gases in India? As we know, Japan has a lot of technologies around it, as we just mentioned.
Thank you very much for this information. This is very, very impressive, and I didn't really, I expected that this concrete request come in this panel discussion. That is very, potentially fruitful the source of cooperation. Thank you so much. I will, of course, convey to the audience.
Thank you so much. And, uh, and as this highlights, there are a lot of opportunities for India to enter the supply chain from a raw material perspective. We are a large country and a big country. And many other, like we had the panel yesterday on the gentleman from Inox talked about the possibility of semiconductor grade gases, and some of these gases that are already being produced in India. Coming to Australia, and Australia is part of the Quad, many might not know that in quantum computing, Australia has a lot of technology to share. And many of the quantum computers are actually built on semiconductor components which are super cooled down to cryogenic levels. Georgina, you want to share? Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you for the question. So I think quantum computing is a good example to show how semiconductors is such an integral, critical technology. But of course, there are many more that semiconductors feed into in a bit of a network of essential technologies that we're all focused on. And the benefit of groupings like the Quad and bilateral cooperation is that we get to exchange expertise in semiconductors, but also more broadly where we have areas of expertise and comparative advantage to share. So Australia has a very strong quantum technology history. Australia has been teaching quantum technology programs at university from 30 years ago when many countries weren't doing that, and now many of our experts in quantum tech are leading on research across the world in the private sector and governments and academia as well. But we like to think we punch above our weight in quantum technologies, so there's very significant education investments in Australia. So we capture a 30.6% share of global capital in quantum from 2017 to 2021. And Sydney, our biggest city in Australia, is already home to one of the highest concentrations of quantum technology research groups in the world. And this includes our experts at the Sydney Quantum Academy, which is a partnership between the government and four of our Australia's best research universities. Australia is also laid the foundation for hardware technologies such as silicon and quantum-based quantum computing systems. And the knowledge that Australia's research has generated over the past decade has gone on to influence almost every aspect of the quantum fields in the world. And just to touch on as well, one of the areas you mentioned, and my esteemed colleagues have mentioned as well, is the education aspect. Australia has world-class research and education institutes, and it can be an important player in the early tertiary stages when you become semiconductor experts. So trade in education services is actually the most significant service we have in India. There's 88,000 unique students studying in Australia, many of whom study in STEM fields. And then recently, one of our peer universities, Deakin University, announced that we'll be the first international player to set up an international university campus in Sydney, in India, and that will be focusing on digital technology, display science and engineering as well. So I think it just shows the strength of our education partnership that we can distribute our talent across borders between Australia and India.
Thank you. So you mentioned about the technology city and the research groups out there. India has set up the National Quantum Mission, and maybe in the future we'll see some collaboration between the two countries, especially quantum, quad in every respect. Um, and you mentioned about the high amount of STEM talent coming from India to Australia to study. And Professor Ajit and I both went to grad schools in the United States. And I think we can both say that with confidence that no matter where is the research, no matter where is the fab, and no matter where is the chip being designed, there is a bunch of Indian engineers who shall be sitting behind those computers and those tools and making it. Arjun, you have views on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that has always been the case, right? I mean, the Indian education system has always been very strong, particularly in STEM, and has produced world-class engineers. So, over the last several decades. And for the skill, I think one of the things that I feel is one of India's strong points is the skill, right? So the workforce that we need is that skill, and India can produce the talent and skill. Some of this workforce will, end up being in the US. Some of them will end up being in Japan. Some of them will be in Australia.